I'm going to talk about a book that I read recently, or in January or February, that I thought I was going to hate, but in the end it has truly surprised me and become one of my favourite books of all time. Which is a big thing, because to get onto that list is a very large achievement for any author to get onto that list, because it is an exclusive list. So today I am going to be talking to you about The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. Now, when I first picked up this book, I had heard so many mixed reviews about it. I'd heard people saying, oh my gosh, I love it, it's amazing. And I'd heard people saying, I hate the narrator, I couldn't finish it, and I just couldn't deal with it. And honestly, when I picked it up and started reading it, I bought it around about a year and a half ago when I was in New York, and I bought it to read on the plane, but I started reading it and I really didn't get along with it. So I put it down and only picked it up at the beginning of this year, and wow. The Catcher in the Rye is set in the 1950s in New York, and it's about this guy called Holden Caulfield, and he's kicked out of this school, this private school called Pencey, and it's basically about his sort of time in New York. He doesn't want to go home to his parents, but he doesn't want to stay at school, so he ends up just going into New York and sort of gallivanting around for a couple of days, and it's all about his sort of adventures there and his inner thoughts. It's 214 pages. It was published in the 50s and early 50s, 1951 I think. But I can't even, it was so beautifully flawed. I thought that I was going to hate Holden because he seemed to be quite an arrogant character who is a bit mean at times, but I really loved him. I just felt like he was such a person, because oftentimes you get these characters in novels that aren't people, they're kind of like stereotyped, perfected images of what people think that life should be, and I feel like Holden was a real clear representation of a person, and for me that was a big thing of the book, because as a reader you get to know Holden as a person and you can decide whether or not you like him, and it wasn't so much like reading a book as talking to a person who was just telling you their story. It felt like you were walking around New York with Holden and he was just telling you his story. I think one of my favourite parts of this novel was his relationship with his sister Phoebe, and the way, I have a brother myself and it's an older brother, and the way in which Salinger captures that brother-sister relationship is just incredible, and it was so touching the way he was so protective of her, and I just, it was lovely. Obviously, I'm a big fan of The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and reading this novel, I can see that Stephen Chbosky really took quite a lot of inspiration from this novel and from the sort of anti-hero, I guess, that is Holden Caulfield, and it was just so nice to see the parallels between the two, to see where things had come from and what might have inspired what, and it was just lovely for me as a lover of The Perks of Being a Wallflower to read now The Catcher in the Rye and fall in love with it in a similar way. I found it incredibly easy to read because, as I said, it's kind of like having a conversation. It's not taxing, it's written in a very soft and like conversational tone, and oftentimes some classics can be written in condescending tones with loads of long words and just really confusing, but it was just right. I think the character development, because of the conversational tone of this book and the way that Holden sort of perceives things that are around him, and sort of, he's kind of like a Fitzgerald-esque character. He's both within and without. He's in all of this sort of social scene and he goes out and things, but he's not really connected to many of the people that he meets. And I think it's lovely how Salinger just delves into this one character in detail. He doesn't make the plot extremely complicated. He doesn't make anything over dramatic. It's just the simplicity of the entire novel that makes me love it so much, because sometimes you get books that are amazing plots and like really complicated and this, that, and the other, but you don't appreciate them for the way they're written and what they're about and the themes that they withhold. And I feel like The Catcher in the Rye is one of those books that you read and it will mean something different to every single person that reads it. And for me, I feel like it kind of means that it's okay to be different and it's okay to be flawed and it's okay to have problems. And I feel like the way it was written was so accessible and so eloquent in a subtle way. It wasn't that it was metaphorical and you sort of sat there and went, oh, deeper meaning. It was straight talking. And as a person, I quite like straight talking people because sometimes when you're in a sticky situation and you need someone to tell you what to do, you don't really want someone beating around the bush and being like, oh, well, you could do this, but you could do that. Sometimes you just need someone to tell you straight, and I feel like reading The Catcher in the Rye, Holden was telling it as it was, and I really, really liked that. So overall, I really enjoyed this book, and I would highly recommend that you try and read it. If you don't get along with it, it's fine, but just have a go and see if you're surprised like I am, because I really adored this book and I hope to reread it and reread it for years to come.